Thanks, Diane, for giving me a chance to talk here.
Oh, and I didn't say that Robert founded the New York Heroes Society and is the organizer of the New York Objectivist meetups.
New York what?
Objectivist
Meetup.com, New York Objectivist.
Oh,
we're the one that formed it. Okay, so anytime I hear the name Duke Ellington, whether it's the man, the music, his history, or this statue, first thing that comes to my mind is my father, who worshipped Duke. In the house that I grew up, we heard most of the 1,700 songs that Duke composed. A childhood friend of his noticed his dapper dress, his princely manners, and his elegant style, and named him Duke, and the term fit. One of the trademarks of Duke was that he was always perfectly groomed. He put the term cool into jazz. As Diane said, his birth dates are 1899 to 1974. His name is actually Edward Kennedy Ellington. And in light of Ted Kennedy, I'm really glad he changed it. So when he died in 1974, I remember that day vividly. There was like a morgue in our home. And 12,000 people crammed into Cathedral St. John Divine, which is just a few blocks from here. He's buried in the Woodlawn Cemetery in the Bronx. And Duke's last words were, "Music is how I live, why I live, and how I will be remembered." And I say amen to that. It wasn't until many years later that I learned that the Duke of Wellington actually defeated Napoleon at Waterloo. So in my own mind, I've made this image of Duke's music, maybe Jubilee Stomp, coming around to provide celebratory victory march. That's how I juxtapose things. But last year when I went to Hong Kong, I stayed right next to the Duke of Wellington Hotel, and I took a photo covering the W. Now, during the Roaring '20s, as Diane said, he came in 1923. During the Roaring '20s, he overcame some racial hostility, racial barriers, by performing to all-white audiences at the Cotton Club. And he lived for much of his life in the sweetest part of Harlem called Sugar Hill. And I moved up to Sugar Hill myself about almost 9 years ago. And one of the few things I liked about it was I got to take Duke's A train to get to Harlem. So he was an accomplished pianist. That's one reason we see the piano there. He started training at age 7. And he was a band leader for the last 50 years of his life, right up until he died. He was a band leader. And he hired the most talented musicians, and he pushed them. He pushed them to compete with each other. He squeezed everything that he could get out of his musicians. Here's something interesting what Duke had to say about his ancestors' grandparents were slaves. And he has something to say about the genre that he essentially, I don't know if he originated it, but he certainly mastered it, which is big band jazz. Quote, "Put it this way, jazz is a good barometer of freedom. In its beginnings, the United States of America spawned ideals of freedom and independence, through which eventually jazz was evolved. And the music is so free that many say it is the only unhampered, unhindered expression of complete freedom yet produced in this country." Just to give you an idea of the breadth of category that Ellington wrote, we know big band jazz, but he did ballet, he did opera, he did Broadway shows, he did romantic melodies, popular tunes. It's sacred music. Just he covers the whole spectrum. They call it Beyond Category is the disc that I have of his one of his compilations, and it just shows an incredible breadth. So Duke's musical expression was sometimes equaled by his evocative song titles, like Mood Indigo, Sophisticated Lady, It Don't Mean a Thing Unless It's Got That Swing, And my mother's favorite, one of my mother's favorites, Satin Doll. And I promised to actually provide some of my own music, which I'm going to play a blues version of Satin Doll for you guys in case you haven't heard it.
Nice.
Okay.
Nice.
So that's his Satin Doll. And what Duke said about the blues is that I merely took the energy it takes to pout and wrote some blues. So if we transpose that to today's expressions, we could say he took a lemon and made lemonade out of it. Duke respected classical and romantic composers, Chopin, and my favorite, Tchaikovsky. In fact, yesterday at the Apollo Theater, there was his version of the Nutcracker Suite, where he transposed the Sugar Plum Fairy to the Sugar Rum Cherry. In 1969, Duke was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which is the highest honor for civilians. And at the time, President Nixon said, "In the royalty of American music, no man swings more or stands higher." So when I think of the royalty of American music, there's a Bugs Bunny episode where one of the British knights is staring down at Bugs Bunny, and he's going off on all of his titles of nobility, and Bugs looks up at him and he says, "Oh, so maybe you know some of my friends, the Duke of Ellington, the Count of Basie, the Earl of Hines, the Satchmo of Armstrong." So these were in the house that I grew up. This were American nobility. That's what they stood for. So today, the Duke Ellington Society continues with Ellington's legacy. They actually helped Bobby Short to get this statue put up. My father was a member of the society for many years, and they also succeeded in having a stamp of him. So I'm going to end with a quote from Duke, from his autobiography, and this actually speaks to me very personally, and hopefully it will speak to you as well. Quote, "I live my life with an unquenchable thirst for sharps and flats. Living in a cave, I'm almost a hermit, but there is a difference, for I have a mistress. Lovers have come and gone, but only my mistress stays. She's beautiful and gentle. I look forward to her every gesture. Music is my mistress, and she plays second fiddle to no one." Thanks.
Love it. Thank you.